during my teacher training course, I figured that yoga is a way of life. Society is also putting a lot of pressure, how we look, how we behave, we have kind of lost our true selves, our true being. I was somebody who had so many lifestyle related health conditions. And I used to eat medicines like snacks, right from thyroid imbalance. Doctors had declared I had early arthritis on my knees. I was not able to walk or climb stairs and things like that. My lungs were so clogged up that I used to be on inhaler twice a day, steroid based. My lung condition used to deteriorate a lot. Around that time, I would have to go on, the whole course of antibiotic. I bring the concept of yoga, and this is when I develop yoga beyond the mat. It's my signature workshop. I usually host it for many corporates. It's done on a chair. Indulge in an argument which is toxic. The moment I see that, I stay away and I don't agree or disagree. I try to just move out. Brahmacharya is preservance of energies. Talking less is part of Brahmacharya.
ಎಲ್ರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. Welcome to Real Celebrity Podcast, powered by C. Krishna Chetty Group of Jewelers. These are stories of extraordinary women. And I'm Spurti Vishwas, your host. Today we're going to introduce you to someone who's done exceptional work in the field of wellness. Yes, let's meet Mrs. Meeta Vinay. Hi Meeta, how are you?
Hi Spurti, thank you so much. I would say it's really lovely to be on your show. I have watched so many episodes and I see how you feature women of substance, and it's a proud moment for me to be on your show.
So Meeta Vinay is the founder of Botsara Wellness and Soul Studio, and also a yoga teacher and yoga and wellness coach. So you have a long list of things that you're doing, and firstly I would like to, and you're also a mother of two, which you don't look like, honestly. And I was really surprised when you said you have an 18-year-old boy and a 10-year-old boy, right? Two boys.
Yeah, 17 and 11.
17 and 11. Okay, wonderful. But amazing. I think yoga has done a great job with you, right?
Absolutely. Yoga and being in the space of wellness, that's the magic.
Absolutely, no doubt about it. So I have been, in the receiving end of a lot of people speaking about yoga, wellness, health, and a lot of things. And today it is also in a way that, very commercialized. So today I'm here sitting with you like a little girl, wanting to learn so much about this space, and also want to understand how this podcast is going to help our audience. So if you could tell the audience on what is the value that they're going to get by watching this video, I think with that we can begin.
Spurti, you rightly put across, wellness, the space of wellness itself is like an ocean. People are doing multiple things. They are even selling medicine in the name of wellness.
Right.
And it is very, very, I'm not even surprised that people get confused, because the idea of wellness itself, it's a space where energies are all over the place and people just don't know which direction to take.
Right.
I will speak everything from my personal experience. And you just complimented me, Meeta, you don't look. And by the way, I'm 52 years old.
OMG, are you serious? I couldn't even guess that. I'm serious on that. Yeah, I thought you were in your 40s, like early 40s. That's what I really thought.
So that is the power of what happens when you're actually in the space of wellness.
Oh my God.
And
okay.
I am the walking example of what I'm talking. And that's why this entire podcast, I'm going to share insights on things that I have personally experienced, and I have figured the way out of the literal trap that we are into in the space of health, in space of wellness, in space of medications, and ever-rising lifestyle-related health conditions.
Absolutely, and that's one of the major problems. So before we begin with, let's analyze where the actual problem is in the health today. So where do you see the real problem existing?
It begins from our today's modern era.
Right.
And the entire mindset, the way we are wired to think on health and in the space of health, wellness, everything, that is the root cause.
Right.
I mean, today, and I was part of that. I was part of that Jing Bang, and I can tell you, I had been on the other side of the.
What's the other side you're talking about? The actual other side.
The actual other side that I see the world moving towards. And moreover, I have experienced that after opening both Sara, where I see people in the similar space that I was until 7 years ago.
It's about lifestyle, food, it could be anything, right?
It could be just about anything. I would say actually the biggest culprits right now are the toxins. If you look at the air quality, your water, your food has so much contamination. The products that we use have so much, that also has toxins. And above all, our society structure. Today we are really...
What do you mean by the society structure?
I mean, look at it, how we are running after a picture perfect image. We have, yes, one side, the society has evolved a lot, but the other side, I feel, is that society is also putting a lot of pressure, how we look, how we behave, we have kind of lost our true selves, our true being. What are the ways we have to express ourselves also is determined by society. And I feel these are and the presence of social media.
Right.
Of course, this is getting podcasted on social media. It has its benefits also.
Right.
But then where are we finding the balance in order for us to feel the benefit? So these are some of the biggest culprit. Now, in the same line, what's happening when we are putting in so much toxins and toxicity inside us? The body is designed beautifully. It is processing. But just think of it, Spurti. If you have to overwork, what will be your performance? Say if you had to do like 5 podcasts or something else that you are already doing, and you have to do like 12 hours, 14 hours, 15 hours at a row for years together, do you think you would be able to give that output?
It's going to be draining and it's going to be
So
exhausting.
how is it that our organs will not be they are tired. It's like an ongoing war, and the soldiers are tired, which are our internal organs. And that in turn is what is causing today's, and then it's along with the lifestyle, right? So it's along with everything put together. They're tired, they are not resting, not rejuvenating, they are not even, there is absolutely nothing that is happening.
The world is
inside.
going too fast.
The world is going fast. Internal organs are not able to keep up because it's too much work.
Okay, got it. Mita, you're a wellness coach, and as I rightly mentioned previously, like there's a lot of talks around wellness, health, and things like that. As a coach, what's the real definition of a healthy person according to you? Who is a healthy person?
It's a very good question. Actually, wellness is such a trending subject, right? Everybody is just talking about wellness. And I do see a lot of good work is definitely being put out there. But there's also a lot of misunderstanding that is going on in the space of wellness. And this is one of the very alarming thing for me when I am not able to explain to a lot of people who already have this preconceived notion that's put by somebody else. In my understanding, when somebody says I'm from the space of health, wellness, yoga, first thing that I see is how flexible their mind is, how their approach is, how their behavior is, what kind of aura they are giving me. So it doesn't mean the aura, when I say it doesn't mean it has to be something that's glowing, but there is a sense of
the positive vibration.
Yeah.
Yes.
When you, and then the physical appearance.
Right.
I have seen a lot of people, with due respect to whatever they are doing, obviously.
Yeah.
But for me to buy the story, when they are talking about wellness or when they are talking about yoga, meditation, with not a very healthy body, then where is the connection? So appearance, the positive mindset,
correct,
which just reflects, right? And you can't actually hide it with a smile. It cannot be hidden at all. These are the two things that also reflects along with the flexibility of mind. The value that they show, the appreciation and the gratitude they have in every step is a sign of a healthy person.
Right.
Sign that what they are preaching is what they are talking.
Absolutely. I think your what you just said rightly connects with this. A healthy person is always, it's not by how they portray that they are healthy, but actually it's visible. by the way they look and by the way they speak, because health is directly related to your emotions, your behavior, the way you speak, and the way you receive things, perceive things, right? Because when you're a healthy person, you're actually thinking and receiving in a different way.
Totally. I mean, I couldn't agree more on this. That's what it's the connection of mind, body, and breath. And when all these are in order, the way you behave, the way you tackle your emotions, and I tell you another thing that I have seen a lot. And I'm not saying I'm completely picture perfect. No, I have my days. Recognizing that is the sign of the person who has the courage, and that's what I mean by mental flexibility. Because flexibility is not that I am able to do things and I have a larger than life attitude or anything, but the flexibility to recognize my own faults so that I
Correct.
can fix it.
Absolutely.
These are all that resonates. I think it's all, and it reflects in the persona. And a consistent behavior, consistency is the only thing that I feel we can figure out if the person, and that can happen with, again, looking at, in my aspect. I think maybe I could be very completely biased about how the physical appearance should look like, because I feel it directly resonates. Body is actually design, it stores different emotion at different places. And if the person who is in the space of health and wellness and yoga, the prana usually flows very freely. If the prana is not flowing freely, which means there are blockages, and these blockages are, and that it appears in the physical,
Right.
physical, it is visible in physical appearance. And that's a direct connection.
Right. So, Mita, I'm curious to know that one strong wellness tip that you want to give to our audience.
One thing that you want to look out in the space of wellness for yourself, to ensure that your bowel movements are smooth. Everything starts from there. There have been a lot of research, there have a lot of conversation, how, and this is what I mean by connecting mind, body, and breath. The way your bowel movements is going to impact the way you think. Smoother, the better health. And then it also, smoother bowel movement is the only thing that is going to give you a good health. That's the start. That's the start. So watch out that there's no constipation, that your bowel movements are smooth. Ensure that you do things such as consuming triphala. That's why I consume triphala at least 5 times in a month with warm water in the morning. If that, and I tell this to all my friends, my kids do this. This is one of the things that they do even when they fall sick, so that your entire bowel is conditioned beautifully, and therefore even your elements like your vata, pitta, and kapha is in balance for good health.
Absolutely. And you've also been strongly advocating yoga beyond the mat, right? When somebody like me who's into, who's done yoga very few times and who understands very less about it, though I definitely believe and agree that. So I will talk to you in my perspective, and a lot of people out there can probably resonate with this. What's exactly yoga and what's yoga beyond mat?
Okay, so yoga beyond the mat is a concept that I have I have developed during my teacher training course of yoga.
Okay.
Where there are so many concepts of yoga that I saw that we were doing. Typically, when I say yoga, the first thing all over the world, the first picture that comes into the mind, please tell me what comes into the mind when I say yoga?
Mat and some asana, which I can't even imagine doing. So that's what comes into my mind.
Exactly. So, and this is how even I used to be until 8 years ago. Very physical aspect, and yoga, that's just on the mat. And during my teacher training course, I figured that yoga is a way of life. I am a Jain too. So the philosophy of Jainism also resonates with yoga. And I think it all kind of, it was like one culture together, one concept that people followed with just being different communities. So it all came back to me, and I'm like, oh my God, what we perceive yoga, which is just the asana. The more the circusy, the posture, the better we feel is the yoga practitioner. But it is just the opposite. Asana is just the 3% of actual yoga.
Okay.
Yoga as a concept is a way of life, is a path to spirituality. And that's why it is divided in 8 limbs. We call it as Ashtanga. And one of the limb that is really popular because it also has those, how do I say, a very fancy, how do I say, like a, when you do some posture, yes, you are able to move your body and it gives boost to ego. For example, I have seen it, and I keep telling back again and again that I was part of it. If I achieved like some really good posture, I would feel, oh wow, look at me, I've done this kind of a thing. But being that as part of just 3%, I was missing out on so many other aspects of yoga. Having said this, that's when I thought, oh my God, everybody is teaching yoga, which is a good thing to do. But why not I bring the concept of yoga? And this is when I develop yoga beyond the mat. It's my signature workshop. I usually host it for many corporates, and it's done on a chair.
Okay.
And the concept of yoga, I'll give you one small example, that when we do seated posture, for example, so until and unless you sit on your sit bones, you're not able to achieve that seated posture at its optimum best.
Correct.
And I was just thinking, why should we only sit on our sit bones when we are on the mat? For example, I am right now seated on my sit bones. So my spine is naturally aligned. Spine is not straight. Spine has 2 curves. My spine is naturally aligned. My stomach is in the right place. My liver is not getting compressed. I'm able to breathe where pushing the diaphragm. And therefore, all my other organs, be it, the intestines or the bowel, everything is just how it is supposed to be. Nothing is compressed. Just think of it. This is the simple aspect that we do on the mat. Why can't we bring it on the chair and just practice it? Of course, we have to rewrite the memory of our brain. The thing that you see on Rise, and I was part of that whole Jing Bang, acute back pain. Our lives are all now elevated. When I'm talking about elevation, it's not from here, but more elevated on this in the space of chair. We're never sitting on the floor at all. Our body was not designed to sit on the floor, on the chair, by the way. It was designed to sit on the floor. If you sit on the floor, you will never sit on your tailbone. So this is what I mean by the sit bones and the tailbone. What is happening over a period of time with exposure to sitting elevated, doing everything which is at the elevation, we have started putting a lot of pressure on our tailbone. That chotu bone is taking our
Full body's weight.
At least the first half of the body. It's a chotu bone that is then compromising your spine health. So these are some of the subjects that I cover in my Yoga Beyond the Mat. I help my participant understand and make the right decision. It's all about awareness and empowerment.
Right. Absolutely.
Today, I can tell you many things, but if I don't empower you, what is it you can follow? So through Yoga Beyond the Mat, I talk about breath, I talk about spinal health, I talk about blood circulation, which is in the form of energies actually. I will talk about eye health. In today's world, we are so exposed to constant blue light exposure and we have no way out. I don't see until there's a huge, some destruction that happens earth-wise, we are going to be glued to the gadgets.
True.
And our eyes were not designed to look at it. We don't know. Maybe in future evolution, human being may look altogether very different with different set of eyes. But today, that's not there. So that's covered. And very, very importantly is mental calmness. I see.
What do you really do for your mental calmness as a coach?
Okay, so now when I was doing my TTC, I found, so there is a concept of Yoga Nidra. It happens in 12 stages. Oh my God. I feel every human being should do this as part of literally their lifestyle.
Okay.
If not anything, at least once or twice in a month, they should do all 12 stages of Yoga Nidra. Having said this, since where is the facility available? Because we are all running behind asanas. And the concept of Yoga Nidra is psychic relaxation or psychic, it's at a much deeper level. What I have done is I have taken a few concepts of Yoga Nidra, I've incorporated it into my day-to-day life, where just in less than 40 to 50 seconds, I can definitely get into the state of relaxation. So, what do I do for my mental calmness? Some of the, and again, that is taken, that I teach even in Yoga Beyond the Mat. So, it's not really, I think, we've made life so complicated. We feel more the complications, better the results.
Correct.
But life is very simple. If you see air that you're breathing, actually, this I've covered in another video of mine, the sunlight that we're getting, all 4 seasons that we get, are we even putting any efforts? When nature has created things in the most simplistic way, why are we making things so complicated?
True.
So it's easy to achieve mental calmness. It's about, again, awareness and empowerment.
So we've been speaking about Yoga Beyond Mat, and you are someone who's done quite a lot of research on this space, and you also host retreats and workshops. So how is that someone can get in touch with you and that they can be a part of your workshops?
Right. So Yoga Beyond the Mat is a workshop. It's my signature workshop, and usually, most of the time until now, what has happened? It's done in a group. So I've done these group sessions, workshops for corporates or like a larger group of people, certain communities, group of teachers and things like that. How to reach out? To go to my website, bodhsara.com.
Okay.
There is Yoga Beyond the Mat. Click on that, or just simply either DM me that they want to host. Typical group size should be anywhere between 15 to 35 people.
Okay.
Group energy is very good when we are doing group Yoga Beyond the Mat. It's done in a confined place, seated on a chair, because that's what you're going to, adopt it on a day-to-day life.
Absolutely.
So that's the way to reach out, either to email or even DM me. That also is okay.
So you can reach out on LinkedIn, Instagram. I will put in all those information in the description for sure.
Right. And for the retreat, group can reach out, because usually so far we have done our retreats in Goa. It's just because Goa, the whole ambience makes it very, very conducive to learn things. And in my retreats, it's not back-to-back activities. There's a lot of time for reflection, and we help people develop habits that they inculcate once they're back into their normal life, the normal working life. Because the idea is you'll feel very good when you're doing some great things around, but you will feel equally depressed when you're not able to do, when you get back to your normal life. So this is where our retreat stands apart, where we teach people what they can go back and inculcate. They may not be able to inculcate everything that we teach there, but there has to be some start. Right. And that starting is the beginning.
Absolutely, absolutely. Sumita, we've been speaking about wellness, lifestyle, yoga, and a lot of other things. And one thing I've been really curious of late is learning about spirituality. And what I believe is spirituality is different for every individual, and how they perceive it is different. So what do you think, and what's your understanding of spirituality, and what's spirituality for you?
See, yes, yoga is a path to spirituality. I strongly believe in that. And one of the things that my take on spirituality is, I feel, that this is all Leela, Krishna's Leela.
Wow.
Okay. And we are in a big stimulation. I may feel, I'm Meta, I've done yoga, I've started, blah, 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 I'm mother of two. Or people are getting healed through Bodhsara. But eventually, I'm just the mediator. It's Krishna. Because we're talking about Leela, we could name anything. Naam mein kya rakha hai is something, is very applicable when I'm expressing this. So, I feel it's Krishna who wants to heal these many people, and he's chosen me. I tell this to my team also, that I'm just the mediator to interview you or to hire you, to train you, and we're all in this. The moment, as long as you serve that purpose, it will be yours.
Right.
And then there is an exchange.
Absolutely.
The more you do with integrity, that is your material benefits. Like in today's world, I would say, money that you make, the lifestyle that you can own, things that you can do with that money. but there is an exchange. The moment the integrity is lost in
Absolutely.
something that you're doing, it can be anything, it can be even sweeping for that matter, then that's going to be taken away. And we're all part of this Leela. And it's very tough. I'm also trying to find what exactly spirituality means.
Right.
For me, the moment I'm able to close my eyes and if I can connect with Krishna, I think that's spirituality.
Wow, beautiful. Well put. So, I'm also curious to know what are some things, knowing so much in the space and learning so much about health and things like that. You have your own research and things like that. What are few things that you would never do to your body? Like, no, this is something I would never do.
I would never go berserk on abusing my body by putting in things that I very well know, right from food to anything that I consume. I will never go anything beyond a point. So everything in balance is Amrit. You go beyond that, it is Vish, which is poison. So the finding the balance, the crux is in finding that balance. And things that I just still can't get myself to eat is extreme, those junk food, the canned juices, the Coke, or I mean, it's a big no. Too much sugar, too much sweet, too much. Definitely, sweets is like a really big no. When I have the craving, if at all, then I try to look for a healthy option, like maybe a date or something. Having said this, do I not touch it? Again, it is in the balance. Once a while, I like a rasgulla or something else, I would go ahead and eat. My body can take it. But if I keep abusing my body, then it's going to tell me. Then, you can't keep on taking things, right?
Right.
So then it's going to answer me by falling sick. So I would definitely never do any of that. The other thing that I would not do is indulge in an argument which is toxic. The moment I see that, I stay away and I don't agree or disagree. I try to just move out because it's not going to do any good for anyone. Being in this space, I think the biggest fight that I can win is by not fighting. So one of the things that I, over socializing itself is not obtaining brahmacharya. Brahmacharya as a concept, we think brahmacharya is not indulging in sexual activity. No, brahmacharya is preservance of energies. And when you socialize, you're talking, interacting with so many, you're letting go of so much of your energies. So talking less is part of brahmacharya, by the way. And so being having understood the concept of yoga and experience, not just understood, but experience over and over again, I never would indulge too much socializing. Definitely not on the weekdays, unless until it's absolutely necessary. By the way, I see you couple of events that I would have met. It's only you and me who would have talked. I think. I do see, maybe unconsciously, you are practicing brahmacharya because I have not seen mostly mingling too much and too much expressing, too much talking. Excessive talking is not the sign of brahmacharya. So that is something that I would never do, being in the space of not understanding my body, not listening and talking to my body, and taking preventive cares is something that I would never do. I know if my body is feeling a certain way. For example, each one of us have weak points.
Right.
Okay, like some people have stomach. Something, the first thing that goes bad is the stomach. Some people, for me, it's throat. I immediately get throat infection. So when the small layer of that happens, I'm listening to my body. And then I'm making sure that I'm definitely practicing yoga, I'm drinking warm water, and taking care of that aspect. And in turn, that's it. That's the reward my body gives by not falling sick.
True.
So these are some of the stuff that comes off my.
Absolutely. That's amazing. I mean,
I want to give another analogy of how much each one, like this is something that people ask, Meeta, how much, what exactly do you know? I feel that life is a biryani. Okay, I like to treat my life as a biryani. Every aspect is very important to bring that flavor. So rice cannot be the quantity of elaichi. Elaichi cannot be in the quantity of rice.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
So everything matters just like how it matters in biryani. Now I'm talking about vegetarian biryani here. But you see, the onion has its role to play. Tomato has its role to play. The rice has a major role to play.
Correct.
Right? In our life, depending on what we want out of our life, right? I want nice physical appearance, nice physical and mental health. Therefore, my life is surrounded by exercise, yoga, because yoga is not just exercise for me. So exercise is different. Yoga, healthy food. And it doesn't mean that I'm not doing that elaichi, which is once a while, of course, I meet up with my friends, we go out for drinking, but I'm not overdoing it because then my life will not be a biryani, you see?
Right.
So again, not doing things that is necessary to do, then it can be a different dish altogether. So it depends on what one wants from their life. You want to make life a biryani, bring that balance to get that flavor.
Right.
A bit of your therapies, a bit of good lifestyle, a bit of good food, a bit of meeting with friends, not over socializing, but interacting.
Yes, that's very
We are social
important.
animals in the end. So doing that, which is how much it goes. The analogy of biryani is what one should apply. That's it.
That's amazing. Bringing all the good flavors in the right proportion to make your life beautiful. I mean, I'm buying this idea.
The other thing that people ask me about, Mita, how much therapy, when should I stop, when should I do? And I want to give one analogy, which is what we focus on because of our priorities, right? Is the SIP, right? Systematic Investment Plan. You put every month little, and then in the end, when it is going to mature, you're going to get compounded. And when you need the most, when you think you don't want to work like 8 hours a day or God knows whatever, the health plan should be your SIP. Put in every day. The whole thing is consistency in smaller, and it's going to compound and give you the benefit when you need it most.
Beautiful. Amazing. So health plan is like an SAP. I also buy this
SIP, of
idea.
course. Health plan is SIP. Your therapies are SIP. And yes, and the life is beautiful after that.
Very true. So I've been hearing about you, and I'm sure you've done a lot of research and practiced over time to understand so well and get such deep understanding. What did really inspire you to start Bodhsara? Because I have been visiting Bodhsara from quite some time, and things like salt therapy, pranic healing. You have brought some of the best practices in wellness into one studio. So, what really inspired you to start Bodhsara? Where did it all begin?
Smriti, I like to actually talk a step before that.
Okay.
I was somebody who had so many lifestyle-related health conditions.
Oh, okay.
Right from thyroid imbalance. Doctors had declared I had early arthritis on my knees. I was not able to walk or climb stairs and things like that. My lungs were so clogged up that I used to be on inhaler twice a day, steroid-based. And in weather where, you have the rains and the cloudy weather, of course, we have the pollution, all of it. My lung condition used to deteriorate a lot. And around that time, I would have to go on, the whole course of antibiotics. And then I used to do like twice a day nebulization during those days.
Correct.
Which used to occur so often.
I can't believe you had all these health
I
issues.
can't believe that either.
Right.
I just can't believe that either. Migraine, a compromised gut system, acute back pain, and very, very, the saddest part was not a very good emotional health condition. This is when I know how mind, body, and breath, they're all so interconnected. So if we can't say I have a healthy body but a sick mind, because they're all interconnected, right? So I was in that space, and I used to eat medicines like snacks. $6.50. 650. We used to have
it's kind of, a lot of people are in that phase now. Medicines like morning, afternoon, evening.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and I thought that's the way out.
Mm.
But let me tell you that I was already doing yoga practice back then. And I used to go just like regularly, twice or thrice in a week, or maybe 4 times in a week, go to the studio, listen to the yoga teacher, and just follow whatever instructions that's given in that 1 hour. And I thought that's about it. I'm taking care of myself. But everything changed for me during 8 years ago, during when I signed up for teacher training course for yoga, just to enhance my own practice and also to feel very proud when I grow old. So that I pushed my boundaries. I was 40 around that time, and I thought, oh, I'm going to be, I should do something really life changing, and I should be proud of myself when I turn 60 years old or maybe 50 years old, which I'm already now. And thank God I thought that way, because I think the time for universe to open up the path of wellness had just already, it was conspired, I would say. And when I signed up for teacher training course, during that yoga teacher training course, we were doing intense yoga practice, and there is the whole understanding of anatomy. This is something that I also take care in Yoga Beyond the Mat. A little bit of understanding of anatomy, which is very important. Then understanding of different concept of yoga, which is again just not only pertaining to asanas. That's around the time I saw 3 hours, 2 hours of practice, sadhana is what I figured that, oh my God, my body had started responding to this whole holistic approach so beautifully.
Right.
And that's it. I used to forget taking my thyroid medication, and it used to be okay. There was multiple things
That shifted for you.
shifted completely. It was a turning point. This was a true turning point for me. And around that time, I started experiencing different aspect of wellness. Like my first exposure to salt therapy was in Budapest. I still remember in Europe, people smoke a lot, and I was already on inhaler twice a day and whatnot, still finding very difficulties in breathing. And I remember after I sat in they had this huge bath houses and stuff like that. I sat in the salt room for I remember clearly about 25 minutes. That evening, I forgot to take the inhaler from my room. And of course, I didn't use it, but I was able to breathe. And I asked myself, okay, what changed? So the only thing that I had done differently that day was the salt therapy. So I went back again to experience it, and I found but of course I didn't know like whether it's going to be available in India. Not that I didn't even think too much about it. I came back feeling happy but the trust in holistic healing started establishing around that time. Then went on to acupuncture and a dry cupping and infrared sauna. And I started seeing that my body has just started recovering in a very big way. Fast forward 1.5 years later, I still remember talking to a very dear friend of mine. She's a doctor. That, hey, I don't think I have thyroid. I don't think, like, I'm forgetting and I'm all okay. So she said the only way to find out is just don't take the medication for 2 months and redo your tests. And everything was okay after that.
Oh my God. Okay.
And of course, I continued because, it was suddenly like some kind of a treasure in my hand. And I started thinking, is it even possible? Because I didn't know something like this exists. However, my child was still younger. My younger child was still younger. And I started Bodh Sara, where we used to do retreat, which we still do. Remember, we talked about it.
Yes.
Yeah. Wellness and yoga retreat. And then over a period of time, I just thought it's time for me to do something, because I was extremely happy, in a really happy state of mind. And I wanted to loudly tell the world and say, you don't have to succumb to medication. Modern medicine is okay if we don't misuse it, but we don't do that, right? So this is when I thought, why not I open something where we have 6 therapies in Bodh Sara. They're all tried, tested, and I've got healed through them. And I put it all together. The setup has a naturopathy doctor, the healer, and completely 360-degree approach to a healthy living. So Bodh Sara was born just when I decided that for me, everything came like, it just came on my way. I would say actually it fell on my lap. And I just found the miracle of it. But to put everything, not necessary, it may happen with other, I don't know. I think it was total passion and this whole drive and like the urge in my, like, what is it, like a burning sensation in my belly to tell the world that, please, your first approach should be holistic healing, not just for the treatment, that's part of it, but to make it as part of the lifestyle. Because
Right.
if you make it as a part of the lifestyle, that's when you get the longevity.
But do you find challenges in people expecting results very quickly and not trusting the process? Because, it's like, wellness has become really, kind of expensive, and, they go try and they're not trusting the process and they want immediate results. And is that one of the reasons that people are not what do you think on these?
No, you rightly put across. So we have set of people who trust the process, and the thing is they're also fed up of because your modern medicine is not taking the root cause, right?
Right.
It is giving you symptomatic relief, and the thing is body actually improves the endurance of it. So your dosage keeps increasing and increasing and increasing, and there is no solution. At least in my case, I found no solution at all. It kept me alive. That's about it. And I see that so much even when people come to Bodhsara, when they're walking in. So there are a set of people, because they're so fed up, they're willing to try and have patience. We also have a lot of education that we try to provide and instill in people, that if you spend, say for example, 10 years being asthmatic or having any respiratory issues, at least give 1 month.
Makes sense.
But to answer your question, the trust factor that comes is also because I tell you, we are wired to see instant results. We are wired to believe that if symptomatically, if we feel good, then we have the trust base. But that's not how it is.
So, what are the ways that is used in Bodhsara? Like, I know the pranic healing that is very popular, and you have one of the best pranic healers, and you also have salt therapy. We are going to talk about this after this. But what are the other 6 services that you cater in Bodhsara?
All right. So we have 6 therapies. Pranic healing, of course, is liked by you. I know it so much, and I'm so happy when people come back and then they say, "Oh, I want to come back for another session."
Right.
I can't tell you. It just gives me so much joy to say, "Oh, remember I told you this is going to help." It's an emotional.
But before that, let's
return.
tell everybody what's pranic healing.
All right. So okay. I'll tell you. Now, I hope this makes sense. See, whatever we take in us, right? Everything needs to get processed, metabolized, and work for us. Now, right from food. So it's not just the food we are digesting. When you see things, when you perceive things, when you experience things, that doesn't go on the physical aspect. See, food is a gross amount, gross. So food is like a gross stuff, right? You eat. If the food is not okay, your body tells you either you throw up or you have other means to for body to push it out. But that doesn't happen when you are seeing things and you're not processing. You're experiencing things and you're not processing. That floats in your energy system. So it's not just the physical body that we have. We have vibration body, we have light body, we have energy body. And in every body, we are actually trapping things if it's not processing. And that in turn is basically blocking the flow of prana. The flow of the prana should be very free. When the flow of the prana is obstructed, it starts impacting us emotionally first and then the physical.
Right, and it shows up very clearly. And I think it's my personal experience that whenever I have done pranic healing, especially with Mohan, and I have not done it with anybody else, and I'm a very, very strong believer of energies and the blockages. I mean, you can literally feel that, when you have blockages, you can sense that. And I think that has to be trained, and the awareness is where, people are going wrong. And a lot of people have to speak about this. Tell people, okay, it's not just about medicines or anything else, but there's something beyond that you can experience, and things like pranic healing can be a way where you can get that instant, kind of sense of relaxation. You feel lighter. You carry home. You go back and you're like, okay, there's something that I'm weighing light today. That's the kind of sensation that I've felt every time that I've done pranic healing. And yeah, I mean, practitioners like Mohan, or they're magical. I mean, the way even you can sense that in their aura and when you're around them, right? So that's amazing. I mean, apart from pranic healing, what are the other therapies that we have? In?
You know, when we're talking about Mohan, I think I really like to. So I've experienced pranic healing in with many healers. Like for example, Bali is a mecca
Yes.
of pranic healing, and I've
Yes.
experienced it. My first experience of pranic healing was with Mohan. And it again happened by chance. So I got introduced to him through another yoga friend of mine, and I'm like, I didn't know. Like how you walked in and you're like, okay, we will see what it is. I believe in energies, but I don't know what to expect, you know. And that's what exactly happened to me. I sat, he's from the thing is, he is not seeing my physical body. He's seeing my energy body with the colors, right? So those are actually these are all naturally gifted things. Like just by doing pranic healing course, one do not become pranic healer.
It's not possible. I mean, it's a very deeper practice that is
not just the practice. I feel one needs to be gifted, just like it's in case of Mohan. And he started rolling his hand and then he started pointing out the best thing is pranic healing will work if your portals are open, your energy portals are open. And luckily for me, I was like a little girl sitting, okay, kya ho raha hai? You know, I'm just going to see what's going to. And because of that open portal, he could just dive deep into my entire energy system and he started pointing out. I am not even joking, Spurti. Nobody knows about it. And definitely not the stranger who I just got introduced 5 minutes ago. And my perception of life changed ever since. 360-degree shifts of how I'm perceiving life. What are the things I'm stocking inside me? What are the things I should just let it go? Because it's not working for me. And it's like a journey. These are things that you just don't master immediately. It takes time to master, to understand. And this is something that happens with self-reflection. And I'm sure you might also would have had your question answer sessions, reflection. What am I doing? Like, you know, in the end, we all want to make it worthwhile of our human life.
So Mita, let me tell you about this. Like whenever, like for example, I think I've been to Bodhsara like for 3 times for pranic healing. And I've had this calling. I've never come there without calling. You know, there's a mind alarm which says, now you need this.
Wow.
You know, you have to go there. And that remembrance is what has made me call you and I'm like, okay, I'm coming. Otherwise, it just does not happen. You know, even if I'm free, not free, the body knows and the mind knows when it needs something. But the very first time you experience it, that is where you have to step in. You know, the second time, it's automatic. You're cleansed and you're nicer, you're feeling lighter. And over time, you need it. You need it again. It's not like everything cannot happen at one time. So you need to go through that process and you'll get to know probably. I think, what do you think of this?
No, you're right. You know, our cells have memories.
Yes.
So when cells have felt good and lighter and they are able to operate in synergy, then it's going to your memory that store this.
The subconscious mind is always knowing about it and it reminds you like, okay, listen beta, you need this now.
No, this is what made you feel this way. So it gets stored.
Correct.
And that is when, again, the cells are communicating non-stop with each other and they are telling, listen, you remember that experience? I think you need to go back there.
Correct.
So, and that we can definitely put it, it's spiritually, it is a calling.
Yeah.
It is a
right.
calling.
Absolutely.
Because we're one with the universe.
And
so other therapies in Bodhsara.
I'm very curious to know. I've been to Bodhsara and I've also experienced salt therapy. How does salt therapy really help people and who needs salt therapy?
All right. So first, salt therapy was invented in Poland, but developed to be like a salt therapy room as a therapy was developed in Russia. And this whole salt healing is very popular in Eastern Europe. So that are the roots. But having said this, I think the roots are Indians because we have the Himalayan foothills. And I know, and there are, it's mentioned in our scriptures that our sages and great people have gone there and they've cleansed their auras and they've cleansed and they've they were able to focus a lot more better. So anyway, for the argument's sake, we will definitely take, because it was developed, what you see in Botsara is something that's developed in Russia. There is 5,000 kilos of Himalayan pink salt in that room that you would have
So
seen.
it's gotten from Himalayas.
Yes, we have got it from foothills of Himalaya.
Okay.
5,000 kilos of Himalayan pink salt. So your floor, your walls, everything is loaded with salt.
Correct.
And you sit inside. And then there is something called halo generator. Hal means salt in Greek. And halo generator is salt generator, basically. So we aerate the salt into the atmosphere. This therapy is extremely beneficial for anyone suffering right from allergies, common cold, respiratory issues, skin issues, insomnia, smoker's lungs, even depression. So I'm not talking about clinical kind of depression. I'm talking about more of, you're not always happy, right? Things don't go your way. And then you feel like, okay, you feel like you're just trapped in a moment and feel very low in energy. So salt is also known to help you feel grounded, and that's how it cleanses you. How the therapy works: once you sit in the salt room, we aerate the salt into the atmosphere. It goes into your air tract. So we have two tracks: the digestive tract,
And the air
food tract,
tract.
and the air tract.
Yeah.
And it starts going inside. It penetrates inside your air tract as you breathe in, and it starts killing any kind of impurities presence in your air tract. So the presence of bacteria, pollen, virus, germs, anything. Now, what they do, just by being presence inside our air tract, they make the mucus thick. Basically, mucus becomes very thick. So, mucus is nothing but a gel-like substance floating all around our body, protecting us from any kind of foreign object that body can't take it. So, when the mucus sends these foreign bodies, which is your dust, your dust, your germs, your bacteria, virus, pollen, anything which is not going to work for your lungs, the mucus starts becoming thick and it traps. It traps all of it. But the other impact of the thickened mucus is the inflammation. So what salt does, it reaches there. First thing, it kills all of it, and it releases or it breaks down the mucus. Now, how does the toxins come out? It comes out as a runny nose. For smokers' lungs, they actually cough it out the next morning and things like that. And for when it sits on your skin, the salt also sits on your skin. It just stops any kind of bacterial activities on your skin surface. And therefore, that's it. That's all we need. Your lungs are going to get cleaned up in case. Now, why should you do it, or when should you do it? We need not actually fall into the trap of having respiratory issues because of the toxic pollutant environment. What we need to do is just adopt this as part of lifestyle. Now, number two, those who already have suffering from allergies and respiratory issues or any other issues, they should do a lot more sessions. That's why we have the in-house doctors. And age group, we have given salt therapy to an infant, 3 months old, completely congested, nothing is working, and to infant you can't do so many medications at all. We gave them at a lower intensity. We just gave them with the mother holding the baby, salt therapy for 20 minutes. And the baby was able to breathe and slept. And think of the mother. Psychologically, she was the most happiest person on earth. So, if you have pets, for example, it's not easy to have cleaner lungs. Please come and do salt therapy on a regular basis so that you have cleaner lungs. In the end, oxygen, you're going to breathe oxygen. It's going to your lungs, and lungs is going to distribute
True.
to every cell of your body. And if that's the main food,
Correct.
right? That is where the activities happen. We're not doing that. Our breathing also is very shallow. That's when oxygen therapy comes
And
into the
also,
picture.
the thing is, a lot of people don't know such therapies exist.
Yeah.
So it's just that you need to find out a place and they need to just go. And Botsara is in Korbangla. They have a very beautiful space, and it's like it's like a boutique studio, like a very nice, and you feel that vibe the moment you enter it. And the salt room is so beautifully made up, and in fact you can take your kids, leave them to play, and then just sit and things like that. Well, so what are the other 4 services?
Yeah, so then we have oxygen therapy.
Hmm.
And oxygen therapy is connected to what I was talking about, the whole oxygen, the lungs are taking in the oxygen. But why should you do oxygen therapy? The first thing first, it's our breathing is very shallow. And that has become our muscle memory. And again, once again, oxygen being the main food for our cells, we are not even giving that. So they are starving. In turn, if we starve, what happens to us? We become weaker, we are much more susceptible to any kind of infection. That is what is happening. The cells are a lot more tired and weaker. So they are not imprinting, the cells imprinting the next cell, right? So the imprintment is not a healthy copy paste that's happening. That's why you should do oxygen therapy. The second thing, why should you do? One is breathing is shallow. Second, availability of oxygen in the environment, especially urban environment, is also compromised. And come on, you need to definitely be in the space of wellness so that your health is okay.
Right.
So therefore, the oxygen therapy was the introduction. We have then TCM, traditional Chinese medicine system, which is as old as our Ayurveda, which is dry cupping and acupuncture. Now, I will talk a little bit on the acupuncture side of it to
Right.
begin with. Like how we believe in prana, Chinese medicine system also believes in qi. They call it as qi, the flow. And everything has got to do with energies, flow of energies. Flow of energy is nothing but flow of prana or qi. And if there is a stagnation, then the flow is disrupted. If there is excessive flow, then also it's bad. Just think of it, if any of the light has suddenly an excessive surge of electricity, it's going to go off, right? Something like that. I mean, these are all live thing that for us to observe and see, and
Right.
we are no different from that. We are also made of panchabhuta, the most natural thing. What's outside is what is inside of us. So stagnant, where the energy is not flowing, or excessive, or the overall flow that is disrupted, that can be taken care with acupuncture. Acupuncture is also very, very beneficial for many other things, right from your migraine or sinus, your sciatica, spondylitis, infertility, hormonal imbalance, during menopausal stage. Acupuncture is one of the things, and I can tell you with my experience, when the modern medicine system was not able to help me during my perimenopause. I'm still in the perimenopause stage, even at 52. Just one session, and one of the things that happens during perimenopause or menopause stage in any woman's life is there is a huge deterioration of so many things that brings mental imbalance. And I have found acupuncture to bring that balance. I am a walking example of how I can't preach enough to say, if you're going through a certain stage in your life, please come and get regular acupuncture session done. Biggest thing, the biggest threat we have in today's modern lifestyle is infertility. The stressful life, the whole corporate life, all that, the priority shift in every woman's life or as a couple is so drastic.
Correct.
And we have left that so behind that by the time for us to get back to that stage, I don't even know if it's possible. And then rise of IVF, that is something that used to be, it was only tried when a woman didn't conceive, right? But now that's an option, just like that, off the shelf, on your fingertips, right? And that I'm seeing, being in Botsara, I come across so many people, right, walking from all walks of life. I see the rise in infertility in younger generation, rise in hormonal disorders in younger girls. All these things can be sorted out with the regular sessions of acupuncture. We'll talk about dry cupping. It's again a very trending thing. Some people really love those polka dots marks through dry cupping. I love it. I flaunt it actually.
Okay.
I find them very sexy.
How long does it stay? Because I've never done that. I've done acupuncture, but I've not done this.
Well, it stays anywhere between 3 to 5 days.
Okay.
In some people, like in me, it stays for about 7-8 days max.
Okay.
So that's the last trace. Like even Mehndi for me stays longest. So something on the similar base. So here we create vacuum. Okay, which brings the blood circulation and the outer peripheral. Along with the blood circulation is the nutrition, everything. It also brings the blood circulation into the capillary. Capillaries actually break also, which is a very good sign in the treatment, for the treatment per se. Biggest advantage of dry cupping that people should start thinking is actually it works as a reverse massage system. See, for massage you go towards the bone, right? But just think of it, we just bring the entire thing out, like the entire muscle, the outer body out. Then the blood circulation inside is much more freer. Oh God, that is a powerful therapy for detoxification that Bolsara stands for. It is extremely beneficial for any kind of aches and pains, especially if you are a regular gym goer or have aches and pains. This is something. Another thing that we literally often we overlook is our lymphatic drainage. So just think of it. You're washing the house and your drainage is blocked. Those are your lymphs in the body. It is so important to release the lymph, clear the lymphs out. And dry cupping is a powerful therapy for that. And again, as usual, that was one of the questions you had asked me actually, that people don't have patience, right? This is a journey. That's why I keep telling it should be adopted as part of lifestyle. Pranic healing, we have spoke enough.
Correct.
I like to highlight a little bit on infrared sauna. So we all know about sauna. It's a dry heat. The traditional sauna basically was where they heated up the stone and then the heat was created. In traditional sauna, the temperature is anywhere between 60 and 70 degree. So the moment you enter, it's very hot already. But unlike traditional sauna, in infrared sauna, the cabin is not very hot. Although once the sauna is on, the heat is penetrating inside because in the spectrum of sunlight after Vibgyor R, it's the invisible light which is known as infrared. Infrared you can use for many things. Your remote control, you're taking temperature nowadays with it has the penetration power is what I'm trying to make the point here. And therefore what happens is heat is generated and it is penetrated through infrared. So the penetration of heat is way deeper inside and your detoxification happens from inside out.
Correct.
Now this detoxification is through sweat. We are not sweating. Especially in city like Bangalore, unless until you really doing some form of exercise, sweating is not natural. And sweating is one of the important aspect of detoxification. That's why pores are created also, right? To push the toxins out. But that's not happening. So there itself is the first line of defense that we are not enabling in our body. And this is one of the way we could do it. Infrared sauna is extremely beneficial for removing the toxins from the fat cells. And you can, over a period of time, you can definitely lose the fat cells. Rather than, losing weight again is such a subjective matter that people want to lose weight. What is it? You should lose your fat percentage, which means your fat cells. So infrared does that. It helps in blood circulation. It helps in any kind of joint pain. It definitely is extremely beneficial therapy for anyone suffering from right from early stage of diabetes or even early stage of cancer. Your blood pressure, hormonal imbalances. I mean, infrared sauna has enormous, and there are so many evidence and scientific research that goes out to prove that how impactful infrared sauna therapy is in us. And it also is actually one of the powerful therapy for longevity. There are enough evidences and records that shows that when you do regular infrared sauna at least 2 to 3 times in a week, your body will age much slower, and that is actually the crux of longevity.
Amazing. So I think you told me a lot of alternative healing methods. I mean, these therapies, of course, now it's, a lot of people are getting to know about it. They're trying and they're seeing the benefits. And there are multiple options like this in, alternative healing. So do you see alternative healing as a future of wellness?
Totally, Spurti. I'm actually seeing, it's so interesting that you asked me this question because When I started Botsara, you're talking to your friends, hey, this is the concept I'm thinking, and I'm going to bring all of it together because that's what has helped me, blah, 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 all of it. And then your well wishers are drilling you. Okay, Meeta, when I stand in front of a gym, I know, okay, I'm going to do a cardio or weights. When I stand in front of a yoga, I know, okay, I'll do a hatha yoga or whatever, power yoga. When I stand in front of a spa, a massage place, I know that I'm going to do some kind of a Swedish massage, Balinese, you name it, whatever. What will I get when I stand in front of Botsara? And Spurti, I've come a long way to educate people, to say that make this as part of your lifestyle. And it has been a very, very challenging journey for me to help people believe that alternative healing is the way to go. Those who've got healed would speak the same language.
Right. And I would just mention about your friends, questioning you in the beginning days where they were not aware of this concept. And in fact, they were like, okay, who's going to buy this idea? Right?
Yeah.
So what were the other challenges apart from this that you faced as an entrepreneur? You're a mother of a two. You are, you had your own challenges with health, and you were transitioning into, becoming an entrepreneur, building the space. So with Botsara as an entrepreneur, what were your challenges?
I had too many challenges. First thing first, the concept. I had chosen such a difficult domain where convincing was not easy, because as I told in the beginning of the podcast, that we are wired to take medicine and see instant results. That is one of the biggest challenge. And you know what? One of the challenge actually came from my own thinking. I thought, oh, people are going to look at me and they would see that, oh, I'm healed and blah, blah, blah. And let's all run and go and heal. But that was not the case.
Right.
There were no takers after a month, by the way. Initially, of course, your friends, your family, they all want to encourage. They come, and some of them still continue to come. But then there were no takers. So that was the biggest challenge. And I'm like, oh my God, I thought it's going to be very easy. But yes, it's the need of the hour, but still people don't know about it.
Right.
So, and I have to pay bills.
The amount of money that's spent in, losing your health is not even equal or, closer to what people are spending on gaining back the health or actually even maintaining that health.
So right. That's what, it's the wrong priorities of what we are running behind. And then from childhood, we are raised to choose the priority, and we are raised to choose tangible benefits. Look at what is in there for you, what is in there for me. Once you see that exchange, then it's worth going for it.
Absolutely. So it's like people are ready to spend on what's making their life go for nuts, and they're not ready to spend and buy idea of what can keep them healthy for a long time.
Totally. Oh my God, please. That's one of the biggest challenge that I used to find. We have a restaurant upstairs. And
that's a beautiful restaurant again.
Thank you.
I love that. I love the food there.
Yeah. It's a nice food, and we all need food, right? I mean, that's perfectly all right. I have seen people splurging a lot of money over dinner or drinks, or it could be anything. But when they come back then, at least, when they used to come over, they used to negotiate so hard because in their eyes, the value of what we were offering, was not convinced at all. Again, it goes back to the society structure. You were asking me, what do you mean by society structure? And this is what is one of the society structure. Something which is easily available and can heal you without complications is never going to work. And that's the mindset that I think everyone has to change.
When did things start changing for you with Botsara? You had your own challenges that every entrepreneur will face, and you're like super excited to start this, and you think that everything is going to be smooth and it's going to skyrocket, and there you see certain challenges. Where is that, as per you vaguely remember, that things started changing for Botsara?
So, apart from the initial stage that I told that there were no takers, COVID happened. That was one of the biggest challenge for us, right? And we sailed through every waves for about 3.5 years. It was like I was totally lost, actually, in terms of which direction. The only direction that helped me was the confused direction that I had in myself. And thank God to that, seriously. Because I was so confused, big side of me, my heart, my gut feeling said, Mita, this concept has not even seen the daylight. Why are you even thinking that it's a failure? I mean, really, I had begun to think it's a failure, by the way. But that's how it was. That's biggest challenging time during COVID. But soon, another good thing happened during COVID is when, especially the second wave was so cruel. I mean, it was, I don't even know a single person in India who somebody had not died. I mean, that's how it was. And suddenly people woke up from within that if I could be next, I could be next. And although back then they didn't know where to go, what to do. However, after 3.5 years, I started seeing like it was compounding for me, where we had already established a name in the space of wellness. We are India's first such studio that was established 5 years ago with a concept that fits into your lifestyle, that focuses on detoxification through a complete scientific, tried, tested methods. So when I talk about scientific, I'm talking not the data scientific.
Correct.
That we can get enough, we can get too many even for a medicine, right? I'm talking about tried and tested for centuries together. So that's when I started seeing the difference, and one led to the other. Spurti, of all, you should remember how many people you have recommended for to come to the studio.
Correct.
And this kind of, it was a compounding effect that I started seeing. And touch wood, as I speak, things are looking very bright for both Sara. And also appearing on your podcast, I have a feeling that this gives me an opportunity to reach out to more people.
Absolutely.
To say, before you touch the medicine, please adopt into holistic lifestyle.
So before you touch medicine, think of any regular medications. Please try and visit a wellness center, that's both Sara, which is in Koramangala. And I think this center, you just don't have to walk in and experience something, but before that you can even consult a doctor and understand what you really need and then go way forward, right?
Totally. Yeah.
Just call them up, take the appointment and walk in, and I'm sure you're gonna write here that you had a great experience. That I can vouch on it because I've been going there regularly from quite a few years now, and I've had my good share of benefits from that place, which I'll be very grateful for. So we've been speaking a lot about wellness, Mita, and sometimes we have this curiosity, okay, we have a lifestyle and there's somebody who knows so much about wellness. How does their daily routine look like? How do you begin with? What kind of lifestyle do you follow? What kind of eating habits do you follow? How do you take it forward? And things like that. So how does a typical day for Mita looks like?
Okay, so typical day for Mita is when after I wake up, I at least once in a month for about 5-6 days, I start my day with Triphala. You must have heard of this Triphala Ras, Triphala Churna, anything in a warm water.
Okay.
What it does is it balances out our 3 elements, Vata, Pitta and Kapha. And any imbalance in any of these elements causes the body to fall sick, right? So that's my, at least maybe 5-6 days in a month I do that. Rest of the day I drink warm water, couple of glasses in the morning first. Then I do my regular cleansing. After that I go for a walk.
Okay.
The walking is mainly to open up the body and to soak into the sunlight. We ignore the importance of how powerful the sunlight rays are.
And so many of them have a deficiency of vitamin D.
Yeah. Although, for that we require a lot more exposure to sun to create vitamin D, which our body naturally makes. For me, I do it to balance out my hormonal, hormones. I walk in the sun to clear out my thoughts. And we are all sun charged, right? So get that energy and set my circadian rhythm. This kind of helps me set up my day in a very positive note. I get back and then I listen to bhajan. For me, just spending, that's me time for me. My kids have already gone to the school, and I'm telling you the routine once I send them to school, right? All rest of it is followed once they go to the school. So I'm by myself. I'm having. I listen to the bhajans, and I just sit quietly for some time. I do a few breathing practices myself every day, every morning, and then I definitely need my cup of chai. This is one habit that I have reduced drastically, but I have not completely
Stopped it.
Stopped it.
It's,
But then
it is kind of, a chai in the morning is a part of every Indian's, I mean, at least most of the Indians' daily
Yeah.
routine.
earlier I used to drink a lot of chai, but I've reduced it just to a cup. And I actually take it more as a wellness. You know, we don't have to force too many things where the body will start rebelling, and then you're doing not because it's coming from inside, we're doing because you think it's the right thing to do, which is right again, but it's not sustainable. So for me, reducing my dosage was sustainable, and I'm doing it. But completely getting rid of it, of course, when I travel, I don't have my chai at all. When I'm traveling abroad, especially, I don't have my chai, and I am okay. So it's good to know I don't have the habit of it, but more of the joy of that morning, Indian morning. And soon after that, I have my shower and I sort out my day, start to go to the studio. There are many, of course, errands, whatever that's plan my day, tell my cook what to make, things like that. I don't something that I have.
What have you been food habits been
Exactly,
like?
I was going to tell you that.
Yeah.
Is that soon after during my perimenopausal stage, something that I talked with a really great doctor, a functional medicine doctor, whom we have onboarded on Bootsara, and we're going to launch him very soon, Dr. Lenny DaCosta. He talked to me about how biochemical activity is extremely important to happen inside our body in order for body to function. In the end, it's all machine. It's just machinery inside the body, right? So, and he told Mita, just don't have wheat, any gluten for that matter, and dairy. So, except for that 1 cup of chai, which I pour a little bit of raw milk, just raw milk, I don't take gluten and I don't take dairy, and I see a sea of changes in my body. My other food habits, definitely organic stuff. I try and incorporate at least 3 to 4 vegetables in a day. I eat at least couple of fruits in a day. If not 3 to 4, I love fruits anyway. So there's not, and a lot of people say that, oh, that's fructose, that's sugar, that's this, that's that. But if you keep your body, like we were not born to have intolerance or accumulate fat or have any kind of different LDL. None of that we were born with, right? So it's about internal body. So thankfully, so far as we speak, my body processes it very well. Very simple khana that I have. My breakfast would be normally chilla or poha, idli dosa kind of a thing. My afternoon will be mostly rice or a jowar roti or a ragi roti with dal, sabzi, tofu, because protein is very important, especially
Correct.
at a certain age. I have experienced it, so I highly recommend protein in all 3 meals, and I have incorporated that in last 4-5 months. My evening meal actually happens usually around 7:30 type, and it's yet very healthy, interesting, but simple food. Evening, I definitely, by the way, I do my yoga practice at mostly at 5. Mostly all my body opens up a lot better in the evenings.
Okay.
So whether it's gym, which I have incorporated again in last 3-4 months, or yoga, I do it in the evening.
Okay.
And then once I get back home, it's my shower, my kids, looking after them, doing things. Once in a while, watching TV, I'm very fond of watching movies, so I watch movies. That's a very typical thing. I think so, nothing much. Yeah.
Lovely. I mean, I think it's simplicity is the way to go. Keeping it as simple as possible, not complicating it. Once in a while, it's okay, but not on a daily basis. You eat home cooked food as much as possible,
Totally.
right?
Totally. Again, the problem with outside food is, it's also mentioned in Ayurveda, even in scriptures of yoga, how the food should be made. It's not just about cooking, mixing things, cutting, chopping, none of that. It's also the energy that you believe in energy might be able to resonate when we cook. When the food that we consume, how it is cooked, how it is brought matters. That's where actual energy transforms. So therefore I avoid eating again outside food. You don't know, nowadays everything is so contaminated, right from your oils to the way the vegetables or anything for that matter. So I avoid eating. Having said this, I'm not saying don't eat, because I do eat, but it's not a habit.
Correct.
There is nothing happening on fingertips for me. I don't believe anything that is very quick that you can order on your fingertips, which means this is not going to actually work in one's body for that matter.
Right.
Yeah.
And Mita, I also have been very curious to know this from you, because AI is overpowering a lot of things. There is AI in health, there is AI in technology, there's AI everywhere. So I've been curious to understand, has artificial intelligence already entered wellness space, or do you think there is a scope of entering wellness, or where do you see AI coming into the space of wellness?
Yeah, this is again, AI is a very trending subject, right? AI is everywhere. You're so rightly put there. The thing is, Spurti, one of the biggest thought process I have here, AI is created to make our life comfortable, to give us more than what human can actually do it in that time. Therefore, again, AI is created by humans. And now I'll go back to the society structure. What are our priorities? We have not taken health and wellness. We talk about it a lot, but we are not actively doing anything. Therefore, not too much work has been put into creating AI to help us.
Correct.
Having said this, AI will also have its way finally when big disruption happens, and in case we know that, we need to take care of health. I mean, I never wish anything like COVID happened ever, for us, but we are way far behind. So, pehle to we will finish having automatic cars and automatic machines and a robot to talk to and this and that. Then we will talk about wellness.
Absolutely.
AI is not going to enter. I don't see that. Technology, yes.
Yeah.
Like for example, infrared sauna is a technology. You go
Absolutely.
in that box.
Correct.
And then we have taken, just like electricity is a technology. In a way,
Right.
right? So it is similar thing. So technology, yes. But for AI to intervene in a great way, humans are only not able to, we need work.
Correct.
It's going to be
Absolutely.
far behind, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, just before this, we were speaking about your lifestyle and things like that. So, are you a person who preaches this wellness in your family also? Are your kids also on that receiving end? Because you have a Gen Z kid who's like, things at least 10 times or 20 times faster than you. His thought process is very different, and Gen Z today is it's a very different generation altogether, which at least someone who's in 90s kid would probably feel, okay, they are like little forward. And maybe how do you tell them that wellness is really, really important, and how do you help them adapt to their daily life?
I'm very proud to say my kids they really look upon me as a very strong woman. They see how I take things. They like my thought process. Having said this, still, it's a constant struggle to keep them away from junk food and stuff like that. Gadget also. I think it's every parent's issue.
Correct.
And I think I really eat a little extra because I have to burn it in in that struggle.
Right.
Luckily, when it comes to health and wellness, because they have seen the transition and they know, and kids know, for them, like mother is everything. Both my kids, I still feel they're still young. Of course, my teenager is not, but then he's so matured enough to understand that what my
Right.
mom is saying is right. So when they fall sick, the top 5 things that I do. First, I make sure that their bowel movements are like completely free. They stay hydrated.
Yes.
They definitely, of course, straight away put them on the most simplest food, which is rich in alkaline. So, an acidic body is a conducive environment for anything to thrive on. And we fall sick because the body is very acidic. So, I immediately replace any of that, giving them ginger, amla, and healing them as natural as possible, even if they have a temperature of 101 or so. Yeah.
You try to avoid medicines.
Totally. Because I have no problem with medicine. Think of it, if I have to travel somewhere, I will take. I mean, I feel modern medicine, one of the things that is brilliant about modern medicine and the technology is that it can detect what is going on inside our body, which
True.
the traditional medicine system does it with the, with the pulse and stuff like that, right? But so my only problem with modern medicine and the society thinking process is, instead of that working for us, we are becoming slaves and we are trapped. The other thing that I do for my kids, that a lot of rest and TLC. I'm always by them. I stay awake in the night because obviously I'm not giving them the medicines. If the temperature is rising, then I give them the cold packs and stuff like that, making sure that they keep sipping water. And it is very troubling for them and me for 2-3 days. Now they are used to it. Earlier, it used to be, initially when I discovered the path and when I started applying on my kids, of course, they wouldn't agree. But when they see that, yeah, they healed and then they have better immunity compared to their classmates or anything,
They would
say,
believe.
okay, chalo,
This is
mama,
right.
Mama definitely is right on this aspect, and I'm lucky to.
So your 3 wellness tips to mothers.
I'm not going to make this a Gyan session. I keep telling all my to fight, to say that I will not give junk food, I will not let you touch, is a lot of it's a lot of stress in that relationship. Now, I'm not saying give, but perhaps like in my house, I've made the rules. You can eat junk food. You, for example, things like a burger or something, maybe once in a month, like I'm talking. But like eating out, maybe once in 10 days. Your gadget, once, 1 hour in a day. On weekends, you can do up to 3 hours. Because it is just not possible for me to fight that war. I have to join hands, and I this is one of the biggest advice, because I know a lot of parents are suffering. So that's one thing. And the other thing is, please like for me, I learn a lot from my kids. Oh my God, I feel they are full of life.
Correct.
Their mind is not contaminated or conditioned at all. I learn a lot from them. So I don't think that I have the authority and I know it all, because they are teaching me a lot, not just on the technology front, that they just sweep me off completely, but on many aspects of life, to learn simplicity.
Right.
Just watch a kid. Just watch a kid and you know how they are the problem solver. They have. So these are some of my advice. And don't straight away give medicine the moment your child is sick, because you never know. Sometimes there could be multiple aspects. And the 5 things that I do, in case if trusting yourself with that. Say, I trust myself in doing that. Even if fever is gone up to 101, I'm not fretting, because I trust myself. I trust my methods. And that trust has come only by practicing.
Absolutely.
What we do is we put our faith in the doctor's hands, not to do that.
Absolutely. I think it's been a beautiful journey that I've been learning and receiving. On the receiving end, it's so much to know as we dwell in. And that's the beauty of this podcast. Like, I get to learn so many things from experts like you, from different fields. And today, I think I got to learn so much about the space of wellness and how it's going to evolve and what's the future of health. I mean, like, alternative medicine somewhere, like you've been advocating, and I've been hearing it from a lot of experts, that that's the next big, that's the way forward. And in fact, things like naturopathy and the wellness practices that you said are something that's going to be very powerful tools. In fact, not just to get over the issues that we are already facing, but also to prevent that coming our way. So I think thank you for that, for giving us so many things in this podcast. And the last few things that I want to ask you, like, what are the 3 big next trends that's coming up in wellness?
Oh God, Spooty, that's not the question I'm going to answer, because I believe not everything trending is right for you.
Absolutely.
And something that is trending, not necessary is, because we humans are, each one of us are different. Our fingerprint itself says, no, it's never same. How something trending what is working for me would work for you.
Right.
So be your own judge to see what's working, which means definitely get into the space of wellness. And biggest thing that I would say that one should adopt is listen and talk to the body. When you listen to the body, your body is giving you telltale signs. Yes, it's working. This also helps you sharpen your mindfulness, living consciously. I mean, this is something that I adopt. I just know this worked for me. In fact, sometimes even the smallest fragrance, something, if it's not working for me, I know it did not work for me. So I think if you connect to yourself, make your own trend.
Absolutely. So we spoke about both Saras. So where do you see both Sara going in the coming years, and what's your next vision for both Sara?
I have big visions for both Sara actually.
Okay.
Because I totally believe that this is the way forward for humankind, and how wellness comes before health. My vision is that there should be, I tell this to my doctors. So we have naturopathy. The whole process is through naturopathy, right? We have naturopathy doctors. And I tell when we have the meetings that how on every other street and corner you have an allopathy doctor, I want a naturopathy doctor to be placed like that.
True.
So sharpen your skill, make your 5 years worthwhile in such a way that when you are dealing with another human being and showing them the path of natural healing, they have no other choice but to take first step towards holistic healing,
Absolutely.
towards wellness. So I have big visions. I would want many more branches available. I mean, sometimes, or actually most of the time, we are in Koramangala. Of course, it's heart of the city. But then we have people coming, say, from Yelahanka or Electronic City or somewhere far-flung like Banashankari or something like that. And they said, oh, Meeta, we would so love to come and adopt this as part of our lifestyle. But we are not able to just because it's too far. Bangalore, of course, you just can't talk about traffic and the things. So I would like to take this concept to the world. I'll tell you, just last month I was in the US attending a conference on wellness and salt. And I saw the latest technology in the space of wellness. I saw some amazing thing in the space of salt, the salt healing. Having said this, that made me realize, oh my God, both Sara is created and it's at such a right space with a lot of human touch.
Right.
Because even at this moment, as we speak in, although it's a modern era, the human touch
That's very, very important.
it's never going to go out of fashion.
True.
And both Sara is in such a nice space that in fact everybody got interested when, there were a certain time when I was asking questions to faculty or anything. They were interested in knowing, okay, what's happening in India.
Right.
And it was a pride moment for me. There were certain people who were Indian origin but not living in India. They came and they approached. They said, "Oh my God, you were standing up for us." That was something, Spooty. I can't tell you how I felt about it. When I talk about pride, it was a humbled way. I felt very humbled. My idea for both Sara, or my vision for both Sara, is that everyone should look at wellness as first step. Therefore, it is only possible when the right people speak, the right people adopt. The more, this is spreading, the more other people are going to looking at, this is when we are going to change the society structure.
Absolutely.
I want to change society structure. That's it.
Absolutely. I really wish that, that happens very soon. And I'm sure you have all the potential to do that. And you'll take this legacy forward and leave behind a lot for this world of, wellness. All right. I am sure that you had some amazing insights about wellness, yoga, and a lot of therapies that you could experience in the space of wellness. And I must thank you, Meeta, for all the insights that you gave in about yoga and, speaking about yoga beyond mat, which I really felt it's a way forward. I think a lot of people have to start adapting this, and I wish that you get the power to spread this awareness wider. And I'm sure people can reach out to you for this as well, right? You do
Absolutely.
retreats and you do a lot of yoga
Workshops.
retreats, workshops, and things like that. So please do reach out. And thanks for all that insights that you gave in through the podcast. And of course, your baby both, Sarah, may it reach the, the where it deserves to be, and with all the vision that you have.
Thank you so much, Spurti. Pleasure is all mine. It was a pleasure being on your podcast.
Thank you so much. Wish you all the very best, and thanks for being with us. Well, that's Real Celebrity Podcast with Meeta Vinay. I'm going to see you with another interesting episode. Until then, stay tuned, and thank you so much. Namaskara.